Hello everyone, welcome to episode 2 of Driving Masterclass. Episode 1 was how to drive a manual transmission car. So if you still don't know how to drive manual and you're somehow ended up on this video, then it'll be in the description. So watch that video and come back to this when you're ready. So for those that know how to drive manual and want to learn how to float gears and have a car that they are willing to maybe beat up a little bit, because floating, so here's what I want to say. Floating gears is not an integral thing. I'm only including it in this just to cover everything. Just for those people that want to learn how to float gears, because I personally think I've always had the mindset in my life that you need to learn, or at least maybe it is your duty as a human being, you know, a life form that has so much potential, to learn as much as you can. So for those that share that mindset, or maybe are just curious people, this is the video for you. It's not an integral thing, but I just think it's good to learn new things and to know how to do things. It makes you a better driver, knowing how to do everything you can in your car. And I just think it's beneficial to know everything about your car. But if you have a newer car, or somebody else's car you're borrowing, or you're worried about messing it up, I would not recommend this, even in the pursuit of knowledge, because this can mess up some synchros. It can grind down some gears if you're not doing it right. And it's just a big headache that you don't want to deal with if you are driving a car that you really like and you mess it up, or you're driving somebody else's car, maybe your dad's, your mom's, your grandma's, your uncle's, whatever. It's just a headache you don't want to mess with, okay? So having that in mind, floating gears, I'm just going to explain it right now. Floating gears is when you shift without the clutch, pretty much. Now, how does that work? How do you shift without the clutch? Pretty much, you're just going to end up matching the revs. So once you get up to a certain amount of revs, or revolutions per minute, RPMs, the shifter will be able to be pushed out of neutral, and it'll drop RPM slowly as all that's happening, and you'll be able to push it into the next gear as it's dropping, and vice versa. If you're going down a gear, you'll be able to push it out when the RPMs get low enough and push it in as you kind of give it a little bit of gas. Sometimes you don't even have to give it that much gas, really, since you're downshifting. And when you float gears, downshifting, in my opinion, is a little bit harder than upshifting. It's a bit of a learning curve. I personally found downshifting to be pretty stinking hard, at least in a car, because the revs drop differently than a truck. A truck, you're going to be able to do this a lot more effectively. You're going to be able to do it a lot better. But don't expect to be able to fully slow down the car with downshifting when you learn how to float gears, because sometimes you're just not going to be able to fulfill everything. And you're going to have to slow down pretty hard anyways when you're downshifting floating gears, because you need the revs to be low enough to push it out of neutral, because you're not going to speed up just to slow down and downshift, right? So the first thing I want to tell you guys is you cannot float into first gear. You can never, ever, 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 ever float into first gear. Don't ever try to float. Don't ever try to start by floating. You have to use the clutch to start. Now, in knowing that, clutch in, first gear, and let's circle around the parking lot a little bit. Now, as you're going to see here, I'm going to go up to 3,000 RPMs. It's going to drop down, and boom. I didn't have to use the clutch. That was just showing you, just so you know, there's proof I didn't use the clutch. You did not see my left foot move. I'll even keep it further up for next time so you can see it a little bit better. I don't know if you can. I can't see the camera myself, but as you saw, I got it up to around 3,500 RPMs. It's going to differ per car. It's going to differ per gear, type of car, whatever, age of car, all of that. And as the revs dropped, it popped. I was able to pull it into second gear. Or third gear. Oh no, second gear. Yeah, okay. I got mistaken for a second. So let's try it again. Clutch in, start up in first gear. Just gotta make sure that guy's not doing anything and getting in my way. or rather I'd be in his way, but anyways. So as you can see, the revs are climbing up, and to know when you could pull the shifter out, you can kind of tug at it a little bit and it'll just fall out. And then you release the gas and then throw it in as the revs are dropping. Now, something about this is what's usually done in semi-trucks or older cars, which both have unsynchronized transmissions. And what that means is that there is no the synchronizer makes it so that you don't have to be in the perfect rev range, even when pressing the clutch, to shift. In a semi or an old bus or an old car, you would have to double clutch and either rev it up or let the revs drop a little bit before you are able to shift, or you can float. And most truck drivers find that floating gears is a lot easier and less taxing on your leg and less taxing on the clutch than double clutching. Now, the problem with a synchronized transmission is you can still achieve this, but the synchros will be getting battered a little bit. And that's why I'm telling you guys, do not do this on a car that you really, really, really need and is like super new or anything. This car is a little older, it's a little more beat up. It's a little, it's gone through some stuff. So I don't mind learning how to float gears on this car. I know whatever car I get next might end up being newer, might end up being less miles, or having less miles on it, might end up having less problems. So I want to at least take the time to learn it on this while I still can, because I'm probably never really going to use it again unless I get an old bus or an old semi-truck or something. So let's try first to second again. Now, I'm going to do a road test, and I'm going to show you guys downshifting because I can't really do it over here. I will not be floating into fourth gear on this car. This car's fourth gear does grind even when I use the clutch sometimes. So I don't want to mess it up anymore by floating. I have floated into fourth gear on this car, but most of the time it just grinds super hard, and I can't do that. All right, so getting the revs all the way up, and you can kind of tug at it just a little bit, and it'll fall out. And as the revs drop, of course, you're going to want to take your foot off the gas when you slide it out of neutral. As the revs drop, it happens very fast, but you can kind of just pull it and it'll go in. Sometimes you'll pull it and it'll just start grinding. That's bad. But as long as you're pulling it while the revs are dropping, I think the revs drop fast enough to where you can kind of just fit it in. And the same goes for third gear. Now, I don't know if I'm going to be able to go fast enough for this parking lot, but I will try. So I'm just going to come around the other side. I'm going to stay in second gear, pull it out, and then... Ooh, didn't want to do it that time. You see the problems? Anyways, it can be very inconsistent in cars because cars, the revs drop a lot faster, so it's not as consistent as in trucks. So, come around here. Nah, I wasn't able to get up to speed enough. Oh, and right into third. That was a lot smoother than that second gear attempt. I'm very sorry about that. It's not the most consistent strategy in the world, but it works. It can be very satisfying as well, I have to say. That's what kind of kept me going with the floating. Alright, I'm going to take a wide line around here, that way I can carry some speed. And then get it up to around 3,000. You can kind of pop it out. Sometimes it won't go, and you kind of got to really push it out. If you're learning in a parking lot, I would recommend, honestly, once you know how to drive a manual transmission, you can kind of get an understanding of like revs, rev ranges, RPMs, rev matching. You could probably just learn this on a back road. That way you have more room. First to second you can do in a parking lot, but I would recommend second to third, third to fourth, fourth to fifth. and downshifting to just be done on a back road, honestly, because you're gonna have to get up to a little bit of a higher speed in order to float, because you're gonna need to get a little above the RPMs. At least in this car, that's the case. Maybe not in every car, but I'm gonna show you guys on the road now. That way I can really solidify it. Now again, I told you I will not be doing fourth gear. I will not be floating in or out of, actually I will be floating out of fourth gear, only when downshifting though. When I upshift, I will not be floating out of fourth gear because it just grinds too much and I'm not gonna deal with that. I told you this might be a little bit of a beater in that sense, that I'll learn floating gears, but it's not, I don't want to ruin it. It's still a car I need to get around. All right, so I'll have a little more room here. So as it gets up to third gear, pull it out, get it to neutral, and then push it back in. Whenever you pull or push the gear out of gear, or push the stick out of gear, you release the gas pedal. All right, there you go. That was a bad one. It's not the most consistent, because again, I told you, sometimes the revs just drop too fast. Pop it out. Now downshifting is a little bit trickier, at least for me. Now downshifting, you can kind of get the vehicle to a low enough rev RPM to where the car will kind of let you just carry it out of gear, get it into neutral, rev it up a little bit. Nope, doesn't want to. Okay, that's fine. I'll try to show you guys a little bit better. I'm not very good at downshifting when floating, but I'll try to show you guys. Now again, can't start, but up 3, release the gas, boom. Pull it out, release the gas, push it in. Pull it out, release the gas. There we go. Revs were a little high. So, as you can see, sometimes it's really hard to know exactly what revs you need to be at. And I will not be floating into fourth gear or out of it unless I'm downshifting. Now, fifth gear is going to be a little hard for me, but nope, that's grinding. I was able to float it into fifth gear, but it's a little hard because I have to clutch in, take it out of the gear, and then clutch out and then move it over. So sometimes the revs drop a little bit by the time I'm able to. So. I'm gonna try out. And there you go, there's a downshift. Once you get it into the right revs, I'm gonna let this guy pass me, that way I can show you guys downshifting a little bit better. Once you get it into the right revs, it'll just slide into gear. So, pops out, pops in. And when you want to slow down, I'll show you. Slow down, out. You might have to give it a little bit of gas. Shoot. Nope. Downshifting can be very hard. As far as floating gears goes, I think downshifting is probably the hardest part. I didn't even float for that. Alright, pull it out, release the gas, and just pull it back in. And then again, push it out of second gear, release the gas, and push it into third. And the same goes for every gear. It's going to be a little different per gear, but more or less going to be pretty similar. try to downshift now since the guy behind me is coming to a little bit of a stop. The thing with downshifting is that you might have to rev up just a little bit. By the time you slow down enough to push it out of gear and into neutral, it can be going pretty slow. Most of the time I don't like to rev it up to downshift, but sometimes you might have to. Push it out, and it just slides back in. I just revved it up a little bit and pushed back in. Same concept. I'm gonna let it rev down a little bit, rev it up, and boom, just goes straight into gear. Again, I'm not doing it in the first gear. That is waiting for grinding to happen. Now, I wonder, can I make a U-turn here? I'm going to anyways. Go up past 3K RPMs, pull it out, release the gas, and pull it back in as it drops down around 2,000. Up to or above usually 3,000. Push it out, push it back in. Again, I'm not moving my leg. And again, gonna slow down for this. Gonna try to downshift. Pull it out, rev up a little bit, and pull it into gear. Easy as that. And again, past 3,000, push it out, push it in. Push it out, release the gas, push it into gear. Again, I have to use the clutch for 4th gear. Don't want to mess with it. Just not worth messing with, honestly. I'm not going to have it keep grinding and whatnot, but anyways, I hope this is enough. It's kind of hard to show you floating in regular driving because I don't use it in regular driving most of the time. I've gone a couple trips just floating. That's where I've, obviously, I told you guys I put it into 4th gear and out of 4th, taking it out of 4th gear before it went floating, but I just don't want to mess up the synchros. I don't want to wear them down at all, even just wear. I know I'm not ruining the car by any means, unless I'm grinding that hard like in 4th gear, but I also don't want to wear the synchros out because that leads to problems down the line, and it's just not a good time. So, I'm going to slow down here. See if I can push it out. Push it in. And then I should be able to pull it out and right into 2nd. And that was a more natural way to float gears, downshifting. I've gotten the upshifts pretty good on floating gears. I can upshift, I can go to the store and back upshifting, but downshifting is where I'm kind of weak on. As you can tell, but I am getting a little better at it. I was able to show you guys a real world example. There's a guy behind me and everything. I was able to get around that turn, downshift, and it really works. It surprised me as well at first. What do you mean you can shift without the clutch? You could downshift, upshift, whatever, as long as you just match the revs. That's crazy. But no, it's a real thing, and it shocked me. When I got my first upshift, I was like, whoa. When I got my first downshift, I was like, whoa, because I wanted to learn it for weeks. Just to learn it. And when I really first got my first upshift, I was like, wow, that was crazy. And especially the downshift was super satisfying. But again, I don't really recommend it. Again, I'll show you guys at this turn if I'm able to. Popped it out of 4th and into 3rd. Out of 3rd. Ooh. Yeah, no, that didn't work that time, but you're not gonna get them all, right? second into third. Second is another gear that sometimes has a little bit of an issue. The synchros just wear out on cars sometimes. It happens. But it's not as bad as fourth, so I'll do it in and out of second. And I'll go up to fourth gear just so I can show you guys downshifting again. Slow down enough to where you can push it out, rev up just a little bit, and push it in. Again, pull it out, rev up, push in. And that was really it. It's not going to be super extensive. It's a little bit harder to explain floating because it's all based on revs, which is always going to be different in every car. Unless you guys are also driving 2001 Pathfinder 5-speed manual with a 4-wheel drive transfer case, then it's going to be completely different for you guys. And that's the problem with explaining floating gears, is that the revs drop differently between different cars, and it's a little hard to explain because I'm not driving your car. Your car's revs are going to be different. So you're going to be able to pull it out of first and push it into second at different revs. Your car's going to drop revs slower, faster, whatever. So I just got the basics. Get it to a point where you feel like you can pull it out of the gear, and then either let it drop to a point where you can push it into the next gear, or rev it up a little bit to the point where you can push it into the next gear. That's it. That's all I can tell you. I can't give you a guide on when your car is going to be able to get into that gear because, it's going to be different per car, and depending on how old your car is, how many modifications you've done, it's impossible to get a sure, concrete answer. So that's really all I could give. I'm sorry if this seemed very surface level, but it's a little harder to explain. But I hope you enjoyed it anyways. I hope this was helpful for those who were interested in learning, and maybe you used it to learn and maybe it helped you. If it didn't, give me some constructive criticism on how I could explain it better, just in case I want to teach somebody in the future in real life. If you don't have any constructive criticism and you just want to hate, go ahead. I don't really care. But I hope you guys enjoyed. I hope it helped at least somebody, or maybe you just found enjoyment in watching somebody shift without the clutch because maybe it's something you thought was only possible on a semi-truck or just an unsynchronized. So I really hope you guys enjoyed. I might be releasing some more driving tutorials, maybe not. I don't know. The future's pretty unpredictable. But I'm at the very least going to upload this one, and obviously I uploaded the last one already. So I hope you guys enjoyed. So yeah, see ya.